Welcome to this video lecture on the purpose and types of events for organising sports events. The intentions of this video lecture are to give you the ammunition in order to be able to describe the purposes and types of events as required in the assessment, and importantly to outline the participants for each type of event, and that's something we'll look at throughout this video lecture. The first and foremost, which is indicated here last, is that throughout this video lecture it will be identified to you and for you to utilize this information for your assessment in the portfolio in order to effectively decide on the most appropriate purpose for each particular type of sport event which you are going to describe, which would include the purpose and the type as mentioned above. As we look through this video lecture, we'll be looking at the purposes and types. The purposes listed here on the left hand side and the types listed on the right hand side. However, as we go through the content within this video lecture, we'll be firstly looking at the types which are listed here, and we'll look at these in turn, and the purposes for each type of event will be embedded within the content. Okay, so the first of our types of event is a competition. There are different types of competition. Various examples could be the Olympics, we could look at the Premier League, or we could look at something along the lines of a school sports day. Regardless of which of these competitions we are looking at as examples, it's important to understand that there are different time periods which these events as a competition take place. For example, a school sports day would last the duration of a day or maybe an afternoon. The Premier League would last a season in football, which is 9 months, and the Olympics would, as an event itself, span over a number of weeks. So that would be condensed much more into a short space of time. The thing to highlight here, depending on the type of competition we're looking at, is who the athletes are. For the Premier League and Olympics, we would have elite athletes. The Premier League would be professionals, where we would not necessarily have professionals as athletes taking part in the Olympics, but they would still be considered as elite athletes. Very much different in terms of school sports days. We might have secondary school students, or largely we could look at primary school students, and we might even indicate a particular year group for that. Okay, moving over to the purpose. For competitions, it very much depends on who our participants are for what the purpose of the event is. So we might have a purpose of a competition being development, and it could be social development or it could be personal development. That would possibly be something which we could look at within a school sports day, where we might have social development where all children have to take part in a series of events, and that would develop them socially, particularly if we have teams or house-based games, and certainly personal development for children to understand the winning and the losing when taking part in sport. It might well be that we have social inclusion as a purpose, and that could be something where we look not necessarily at the elite level of Premier League, but we might look at amateur-based sports, possibly Sunday league teams, where participants are adults and they take part because of the social inclusion aspect of the team games. Our second type of event is titled tournaments. Tournaments are in many ways classed as a competition. However, for this assessment it is important that you differentiate between the two and refer to anything which we might consider in the form of, for example, a knockout tournament or a playoff system, as we have largely in American-based sports which follow their league systems. The FA Cup or League Cup would follow a round-robin or knockout base. We could similarly look at Champions League or other knockout-based events which are considered as tournaments. Some, again, could be classed or titled as competitions, but they are in fact tournaments. Participants for these events could range from elite level athletes to voluntary amateur athletes, we could be looking at youth athletes, but be very specific in indicating who the athletes are for the type of tournament which you're describing. The purpose would lead to what type of athlete or participant we have taking part in the tournaments. Largely, we could look at social inclusion. However, if we have a knockout tournament, a team or a participant or individual who may lose in a particular round or stage, do they continue? If it's a knockout, then it's not necessarily social inclusion. If it's a round robin tournament, then they would keep playing and be socially included. Sometimes we have fundraising, charity games or tournaments which are designed to raise money, where participants could be a whole from a range of societal backgrounds, with teams or participants paying to play in this tournament, with possibly with spectators charged to spectate and watch, all for a good cause. Our third type of event is a training camp. This is largely something which would take place or be staged in a pre-competition or pre-tournament time frame. For instance, a pre-season for a lot of team sports, particularly invasion games like football and rugby. We can see from the image here we've got an American football player, and largely college and high school athletes in America, they carry out training camps before the season in the summer, where they might have a very intense physical nature to the sessions. So the development, the purpose that we see is development here, and we might well be looking at physical in terms of physical preparation. It could be in the case of an elite or amateur boxer preparing for a fight. They go on and take part in a training camp, which are typically very enduring. It might well be that as a team is forming together, if we look at stages of group development, we might have a social element to that purpose of a training camp, particularly for new teams. That could be for elite level teams as well as the physical purpose. Physical development purpose. But we might well have personal development, particularly for individual athletes, and we could have those particularly for younger athletes who are taking part in training camps. Our fourth type of event are coaching courses. Let's be very particular about coaching courses, and the viewpoint that we should look at coaching courses are for coaches or sports leaders to attend in order to educate themselves and obtain a qualification and more experience in a specific sport. It could well be in a tennis coaching course or leadership course. It might be a football course, or it could be a workshop delivered by Sports Coach UK on something like analysing your coaching. It could be on something along the lines of nutrition within sport, or it could be a general sports leaders course, which many of us will be aware of in terms of what we've been able to complete. Depending on the participants, if they are, for instance, adults, or they are a group of sports coaches wanting to further their sport-specific knowledge, we would very much look at educational being the purpose. We could have development in terms of personal development, because it might be to that a coach or a leader is going on to a coaching course for a particular personal development need, like being able to analyse their own coaching strengths and weaknesses. The next type of event that we'll look at is sponsored events. These typically take place in order to fundraise as a purpose for charity. People may undertake various different challenges, such as the Great North Run. Many people take part in that, and we could have anybody within an adult age take part in that, and there are of course junior races where people can raise money as well. So we need to be very specific about who our participants are in this. It could be something like Sport Relief, where we have teams taking part, or colleges or schools carrying out a sponsored event in order to raise money for sport relief, something like comic relief or children in need. It might well be that we have somebody taking part in something like a skydive, and that might be because they want to raise funds for a particular local charity or cause, such as a local hospital or a children's unit in a hospital, for something which might be very close to their person or their family and their experiences. Similar to sponsored events, we're looking at expeditions. In the similar light, we could have an expedition which is taking place where the participants are, for instance, a selected group or a team who are carrying out an expedition in order to fundraise. Could be something along the lines of somebody related to the team or the club that players possibly play for has suffered an illness, so the players would like to go on an expedition in order to raise money and fundraise for that individual's cause. It might be a certain charity. However, expeditions can largely be a lot more arduous on the participants and are very significant in many ways. It could be something along the lines of an expedition travelling, either cycling, walking, running from Land's End to John O'Groats and have the length of the UK covered. It might well be carry out a consecutive number of marathons or triathlon distances and disciplines, or something like what these participants are here, something along the lines of walking or travelling to the North Pole or across the Antarctic. It might well be that individuals carry out this for personal development, and there is certainly of recent one expedition carried out where an individual had a personal development need and an ambition to cross the Antarctic. Here we're looking at outdoor education as a type of event. In with the title, the purpose would typically be educational. However, we might be looking at social development as well, which would depend on the level of the participants or the age of the participants. Outdoor education typically looks at events such as gorge walking, mountaineering, carrying out something like a water-based sport or activity like surfing or kayaking, rafting. And if we're looking at educational as the purpose, it might be that we have a group of college students or secondary school students who are learning how to surf as part of their outdoor education, and that might be an extension to PE or their physical education program. We might have social development where a group of people come together, possibly as part of a team working together in a company, and they have outdoor education in form of a team building challenge to carry out, where they might have to design a raft and cross a river or a water obstacle. The final type of event is field trips. With field trips, we would largely be looking at school students. We could be looking at secondary or primary school students, and that might be in a sense of something where we might have primary school students visiting a local farm. Certainly infant or year one students might go to a local farm to learn about animals, and the purpose would be educational. We might have a group of students, again primary or even lower secondary, going out into a local wildlife area, carrying out either geography or science-based work, and that might be for the purpose of environmental awareness, but that might also cover an educational purpose as well. So it's not necessarily clear-cut in many cases. We could provide more than one purpose to a type of event. Okay, so as we look back at the intentions of this, we should be very aware and able to describe the types of events that we select and an appropriate purpose for those types of events. And importantly, we need to be very clear to outline the participants for each type of event. We might do this to connect the type of event with the purpose, and that should fall within your description as you're writing this in your portfolio.